Well, 90 minutes from now, President Obama will address his plan to take on ISIS. He's going to do that at the White House. Hi, everyone. I'm Gretchen Carlson, and we are here to bring you the real story today. The president asking Congress for a 3-year authorization to fight the terror group around the globe. But lawmakers want him to clear up some wording in the resolution, especially over the use of ground troops. The draft resolution limits long-term ground combat operations, but leaves limited options open for ground troops to take action against ISIS leadership, gather intelligence, and for rescue operations, especially after the deaths of the Jordanian pilot and American Kayla Mueller. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry live for us at the White House. So, Ed, is the president guaranteeing victory against ISIS?
Gretchen, no, he's not guaranteeing victory, and that's one of the interesting layers to all of this, and why his comments next hour will be so intriguing, is that when I pressed Josh Earnest on that very point, he said this is a long-term struggle. We're not guaranteeing a victory in the next 3 years, which is the length of this authorization of the use of force against ISIS. Josh Earnest also saying that they were deliberately fuzzy in the language that they wrote here because they want maximum flexibility for the commander-in-chief. That's why I asked him, if you want flexibility, why is there any timeline at all? Why does this only last for 3 years? Listen.
If this is all about flexibility, why is there any sunset at all? Why is there a 3-year timetable? Why not leave it open? Is the president guaranteeing with this that you're going to defeat ISIS in 3 years?
The president is not saying that. The president has made clear that this is a longer-term proposition.
Now, it's interesting about the fuzzy language in all of this is that it's bringing some scorn from the left and the right. You have Democratic Senator Tim Kaine saying he wants a lot more clarity here. And then you have some Republican senators saying, well, hold on a second. Are you going to be tying the hands not just of this commander-in-chief, but the next commander-in-chief since it outlasts this administration? That's why we're told by Republican aides on the Hill this is going to be a heavy lift for the president to pass this in the House and Senate, Gretchen.
Wow, that's a really interesting point about the timeline. So, what are they saying about any delay in staging that raid to rescue ISIS hostage Kayla Mueller? As Fox News reported yesterday, there may have been 5 to 7 weeks between intel and rescue.
You're absolutely right, Gretchen. That apparent gap there, that there might have been actionable intelligence last May saying here's where Kayla Mueller and also, by the way, other ISIS hostages were being kept. And then the rescue attempt didn't come until July. So we pressed Josh Earnest why that gap, especially since the president is out here saying that he was pressing on all fronts to find the hostages. Listen.
How can he tell BuzzFeed, I did all I can when a couple of months there passed? Can you explain that gap?
Ed, I can confirm for you that there was no delay in the president's decision to order this military raid as soon as he and his military advisors and his national security team had confidence that, or at least a high degree of confidence about where exactly she was.
Very important moving forward, obviously, because as Josh Earnest said yesterday, there's at least one more American hostage being kept in the region right now. He also hinted there could be more when he used a plural, hostages, yesterday. Not a lot of clarity there. And so all of these issues are very important because there could be more American lives at stake, Gretchen.
Yeah, no doubt. Ed Henry, live at the White House. Thank you. So the U.S. has been bombing ISIS, as you know, since August. And lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are ready to endorse now this military campaign. But politics, of course, could get in the way.
I hope that they don't play politics with that because this is deadly serious.
This use of military force to deal with ISIS is an important step forward. And I think the president's going to have to go out and make his case to the American people.
Monica Crowley is online opinion editor for The Washington Times and a Fox News contributor. This is very interesting because we just heard from Ed that there are politics at play, although it seems like both parties are ready to listen to what the president has to say about this.
Well, on the other hand, though, Gretchen, leave it to this president to take the right thing and screw it up. So the authorization to use military force is a proper road to have congressional authorization to go in and really be able to give the president the latitude he needs to fight
Destroy
ISIS.
And degrade.
Exactly, and other Islamist groups in the region. However, there are so many restrictions on the ground forces. And there is this timetable that doesn't just hamstring this president, hamstrings the next one, because it's a 3-year period. And there are a series of other restrictions on the use of force against this particular enemy.
Well, why would he ask for 3 years?
Ends up defeating the purpose of the authorization in the first place.
Why would he ask for that 3 years, knowing that he's out in 22 months?
You know, this is very interesting. This is very similar to what he did with Afghanistan, right? He announced the surge in Afghanistan and at the same time announced a timetable for withdrawal. What this president repeatedly does, including with the request for this authorization, is he goes about doing this with half measures in terms of what we will do, while also making these public pronouncements for what we won't do. And what that has, the effect it has, is not reinforce in the minds of the enemy that this president and this country is serious about it and really attacking them and defeating them, but reinforces the idea that they are fundamentally unserious about this fight.
So it was interesting because one of the limitations in this authorization request says this: the authority granted in subsection A does not authorize the use of the United States Armed Forces in enduring offensive ground combat operations.
Right.
What does that mean?
I mean, look, this is National Security 101. You never tell the enemy what you are prepared to do, and you never tell the enemy what you're not prepared to do. This president has been telegraphing both since the day he entered office, particularly with this deadly enemy. Here he's going to go about an authorization and tell the enemy, well, we're really not that serious about it. You know what this tells me? That this is less a serious move by the commander-in-chief to actually fight and defeat this enemy than it is a political fig leaf, Gretchen, so he can go to the American people and to the Congress and say, look, I'm doing something, when actually he has no intention of fighting this war the way it needs to be fought.
Well, and something to be said about the timeline of all of this, because, you know, it's not like he's been wanting to do this right away. We've been bombing ISIS since August.
Well, and he has spent so much time trying to minimize the nature and scope of this enemy, downplay it, because if he told us the truth about the enemy, number one, he'd have to do something beyond just merely getting this authorization or using drone strikes. Number two, he would have to admit he's been a failure because this enemy continues to gain ground and influence. And number three, he would show himself to be essentially a liar in telling us all of these years that al-Qaeda is on the run and they're not gaining ground and influence, when we can all see with our own eyes that that is not true.
Monica, thank you so much.
Pleasure.